Happy New Year, everyone, and welcome back. Hope you managed to get some downtime with friends and family over the holidays. We're back in the mountains today, but you can see this is a little bit different. This time we're in Sunshine Village, which is a ski hill just outside of Banff in Alberta. The reason for that is I'm solo parenting this week and I needed to find a slot to record whilst the kids were occupied. As it happens, this morning they're in ski lessons, so it's as good a chance as any to get some content recorded for you all. Due to COVID, and also because I just needed a bit of downtime over the holidays, I have been away for the camera for about a month or so, but I'm pleased to report fit, well, and raring to go now we're in 2024. The plan for this morning, I want to talk you through my thoughts on the RS6 after a couple of months. I want to cover all of the winter prep that we did to the vehicle a couple of weeks after we picked it up in November and December. We do have another video in the hopper, which I'm excited to get out to you, which covers the entire PPF process with Jed at Autokosmetik in Calgary. He got some great shots as his team was getting the work done, and I learned a huge amount from the process, so I'm excited to share that with you. We're really happy with the results, but more on that in the next video. And for now, let me take you through my thoughts on the car after 2,000 kilometers. So I just popped down to mid-station just for a change of scenery. As you can see, it is a beautiful day in terms of skiing conditions. Powder, fresh snow falling, not too cold, love it. But onto the car. After the first 2,000 kilometers, first of all, the ride is super comfortable, even with dynamic ride control. And I think I mentioned this in my first video, unless you have terrible roads around where you live, for me, DRC is the suspension of choice for the car. It's plenty comfy enough because you've got the 3 levels of adjustment. It's true, the stiffest mode, you want to reserve that for when you're really pushing and when you've got really good, crisp and clean bump-free roads, but the other 2 modes, plenty of play in the suspension, but overall just a much more planted feel when going around corners and under acceleration. And in comparison to the 21 RS6 we had that was on air suspension, just a much more fun and enjoyable and engaging drive. The rear wheel steering, just awesome. I can't believe how easy it is to park the car. And I know rear wheel steering is not really a new invention. It's been around for quite some time. But the reason I mention it is because the car, is so big, it's so long, it's so wide. I just can't tell you how easy it feels to park the car because of that rear wheel steering. So it's just fantastic. So just driving around the city, parallel parking it, getting it into narrow parking spots, honestly, just no drama at all. Now, the other benefit, of course, of rear wheel steering is when you're driving at higher speeds, the rear wheels, as you're cornering, will actually corner a little bit, in the same direction as the front wheels. What does this do? Provides fantastic stability at high speed. I mean, I've got nowhere near testing, that high speed stability yet, but I can tell you in the runs to the mountains and as we kind of get through into Canmore, there are some lovely curves in the Trans-Canada Highway here, just super stable, super planted, regardless of the conditions. So that rear wheel steering, just huge benefit. Enjoying that more than I think I expected I would. So the one element of the driving experience which is a little bit to be desired for me is the gearbox. It's not a particular surprise. It's a torque converter. It's the same torque converter that was on the 2021 model and I think previous generations as well. Now, they have made some improvements from 2021 to 2024, no doubt. It's more exciting, it's more aggressive shifting, especially when you're in sport mode. But the reality is it still feels lumpy, it still feels a little bit lethargic, especially in drive mode. And for me, having driven so many dual clutch transmissions, on SUVs and sure on smaller sports cars, I just wonder, what a machine it could have been if it had had a dual clutch transmission. So it's not the end of the world. It doesn't take too much away from the driving experience. It's just something for me that, wow, this could have been absolutely phenomenal if it had had that. But, like I said, still a great car to drive, but there's a little bit more that could have been had there. Let's talk cabin noise just briefly. I did talk about this, I think, in my last video, but the one difference now is we've added a roof box, and so we've done quite a few trips to the mountains with that in place. Now, I fully expected this to, kind of take an edge off that cabin noise, to create a lot more wind noise. But I'll be honest, we did pick a fairly slimline roof box. It's mainly for the skis. But honestly, cabin noise, hasn't gone up that much. Of course, when it's windy, it amplifies that effect, but can still hear the engine nice and clearly, still get great exhaust note when you're driving with a little bit of purpose. So I have to say, overall, cabin noise, love it. Even with that sound deadening that's been reduced, it's still a really enjoyable and quite quiet experience if you want it to be, slotted into sport mode in the gearbox, drop down a few gears, and you hear plenty of exhaust notes still in the cabin. So yeah, all around cabin noise, super impressed with actually. So onto the exhaust, good, solid, pretty lively when in sport mode, but again, it's lacking something. It's not a surprise if you look online into Audi Xena, the other forums, doing a catback exhaust is pretty common on RS6s and RS7s. And I can totally see why. When I've had a look under the car, there's just so many, resonator boxes, muffler boxes. So by the time, the air has got to the back of the car, it is dulled down quite a bit. Now in sport mode, especially if you get the windows down, it actually sounds pretty good, and again, I don't think they changed it from 2021, so it's probably just the sound deadening that makes it feel a bit more alive in the cabin. But that said, yes, still definitely thinking and most likely planning to do a catback exhaust at some point later this year. Not in a rush, honestly, it's certainly not, a major thing that we're missing. But I can imagine, when it's a bit more straight piped to the back of the car, just what a sort of louder and more exciting sound you're going to get when you're pushing the car in sport mode. Now, I'm not looking for this car to be loud all the time. So whatever exhaust we choose, it's going to be really important. And when we run it in drive mode and we're cruising at high speeds, that it's still nice and quiet, similar to today. But for me, what I'm missing is when I really want to thrash it, when I really want to open up the valves and get it going. It sounds good right now, but I just think there's potential that's lacking. So that's not going to be a change we make anytime soon, hopefully at some point this year. And of course, when we do, I'll document it on the channel. Most likely we'll get that done at Tunerworks in Calgary. I know they fitted a bunch of these to previous RX6s with very happy reports from the customers that have got them on their cars. I'm not sure how important it is to talk about miles per gallon, but I'm happy to share that with you. We have driven this mainly recently on pretty long journeys, so this is a fairly good indication of what it does when it's cruising. And I checked it this morning just as we parked up at Sunshine, and for this journey I think it was 22 miles to the gallon. You can get a bit more out of that, sure. I think I remember seeing the 2021 run maybe 30 miles to the gallon, but to be honest, 20 is probably going to be pretty decent, and if you're thrashing it, I mean, you'll get just over 10. So yeah, it's not economical, let's be clear. It's not too bad as a highway cruiser, but it's a big car. It's heavy, it's 2 tons, it's a 4-litre engine, it's twin turbo, and it's a car that, wants to be driven quickly. So it's very difficult to just cruise around and be sedated in it. So, if you're looking for good miles to gallon, definitely not the right car. It's not terrible. The tank's a pretty good size. So, you can go fairly long between fill-ups, but yes, you definitely get through some gas. Driver assistance, I don't think I talked about this when I did the first couple of videos, so let me just spend a minute or so chatting you through this. So on the package that we got, it may even have been standard for Canada actually, but it's the full driver assistance package. So you've got traffic sign recognition, adaptive cruise control, and when you're driving, it won't fully take over the steering, but if you're in cruise control, it will kind of nudge you to keep you in lane. Thoughts on that? It's great. To be honest, I'd say it's not too intrusive. in Canada, they don't tend to have cat's eyes in the roads, so I feel like sometimes you can get a little bit confused as to what lanes you're in. When there's construction, roadworks, it's not great because you're having to cross lanes. You're not always going to indicate, and the car will sometimes tug because it'll think you're going out of lane. But in general, it's less intrusive than the Q4, so I kind of prefer that. There's some cool technologies kind of as part of it. That traffic sign recognition actually links into the adaptive cruise control, so it can bring the speed down as you cross into a different speed limit area. Great, if you're not paying attention. I've actually turned that off, because of course if you're doing say 5 or 10 over the speed limit, then it's going to be a bit of a sharp break when it's pulling you down kind of another 20 or 30, but kind of a neat thing, especially if you're driving on roads that you don't know. When we do road trips later this year, I think we'll switch that on. Just kind of a neat function, keeps you safe, keeps an eye out for the speed limits. Of course, important to do that yourself, but kind of a nice feature that I wasn't aware of. A couple of annoyances before we wrap here that it's just, I think important to share. The one that bugs me every time I get in the car is you can have custom driving modes. And what I mean by that is you can kind of set the car up in terms of the suspension feel, the steering feel, the engine noise, the exhaust note, bunch of stuff, and gearbox mode as well. So that's great. And there's an RS1 button on the steering wheel. Great, you can individually customize that, hit that button, and then it puts on your preset driving modes, which is fantastic. What is super annoying though, is it doesn't remember that when you turn off the car. So it remembers the settings, it ties them into that RS1 button, but every time you turn on the car, it goes back to kind of an auto setting. So you have to press RS button every time you start the car. I guess it's not a huge deal, especially if you are driving an auto all the time, then, no big deal. But for me, I like to have the exhaust note set the way I want it. I want the suspension set the way I want it. And I want that basically every time I drive the car. The only time I'd want it any different is if I put it into RS2 mode, take the traction control off. And that's if I'm really, going for a bit of a push somewhere. But generally RS1 mode is just a great balance, and it's the settings that I set up. So not being able to have the car remember that at start every time and having to press the button before the ignition, just huge pain in the ass. Don't know why they've did it that way, and it's not just to do with the RS6, it's on all Audi models. It was even back the same on the old SQ5, but just a pain. So find that a little frustrating. And then the other thing is the Matrix LED headlights. Now, is this on Audi? Is it on North America? I guess you can be the judge of that. But here's the deal. So back when the car was released in North America in 2021, the Matrix LED headlights were disabled. So, the laser headlights that see super far in the distance, they work fine. In fact, they are incredible. I'll try and get a video out on that at some point this year. They're just amazing how far actually the car can see in the distance. But the matrix function, and as a reminder, that is where parts of that full beam can be shut off, so you can see around the car in front without blinding that car in front, because the part of that full beam is actually shut off where the car is. Super, super clever. But it's disabled from factory. Now, I can understand in 2021, I don't think the North American, American and Canadian regulations were up to date. That's fine. But they are now, and Matrix LED headlights are somewhat common on other car brands that are running in North America. So I find it a little bit frustrating that, just because this isn't really a new model of car, that they kind of switched on that functionality now. Now, I'm not a technical expert, perhaps the way they're set up from a European standard perspective is slightly different to North America. Even if that's the case, I just find the whole thing very frustrating, because it's probably the best part about the headlights. And for Audi and the regulators to have just not figured that out, and to effectively, just had an entire production set of years of a car which has that technology and then not be able to enable it, kind of sucks. Now, We have turned it on ours, but you kind of have to do it backdoor route. People, you know, look through online forums. So it is possible to get it switched on in North America, and that's great. And I appreciate the people who put out that service. But man, I just wish Audi, the regulators, would get it together and just get it switched on. It's a simple software update. It's not that difficult to do, but you know, maybe there's a good reason for it. But yes, that annoyance, just because, you know, of course, it's effectively paying excess cost in order to add functionality, which in reality should have been switched on from the factory. We're back home now after the ski day, so let's chat through the winter prep that we had done to the vehicle. This was done about a month and a half ago, involved PPF, paint protection film, ceramic coating on both the panels of the car as well as on the summer rims at the time. Added a roof box, as you can see, and of course added winter wheels and winter tyres. But first of all, let's chat through the PPF. So we applied PPF up to and including the A-pillars on the front of the car, as well as on the front of the rear fenders, rocker panels, as well as coverage under the door handles and on the wing mirrors and the luggage strip. We did think at one point, you know, whether it was worth doing PPF on the full car. I'm sure it would have added better protection, but of course it also adds in cost, and I think that would have come to 5,000 or 6,000 Canadian in total. But what we ended up doing was kind of getting PPF on all of the areas of the car that we expected to be vulnerable to rock chips. So as we said, the hood, front bumper, front lights, A-pillars, and then the sunroof strip just above the windshield. And that so far has provided pretty good protection. And then the ceramic coating was applied to all of the other parts of the car which didn't have paint protection film on. And we've been really happy with that combo. The PPF on the front-facing portion of the car has so far protected the bodywork pretty well from any of the rock chips that we've had down, and the last couple of trips to the mountain there has been quite a few. And then what I love about the ceramic coating, I mean, as well as the PPF, but when you go to clean the car, it just seems to clean so much easier. And I'll just show you a little clip here of the winter wheels, which do not have any ceramic coating on, and you can really see how the dirt kind of sticks to those. I'm going to have to really get into them. So I think what we'll do when these winter wheels come off in the spring is take them to Jed at Autokosmetik and get him to apply the ceramic coating to those as well, as I really do think it makes quite a big difference. The other protection we added to the front of the car was an ExoShield film, which we applied to the windscreen. Now, this isn't something that I've used before, so I was kind of interested to try it out. You know, notorious in Alberta for rock chips, and when we hit the mountains every weekend, at least once or twice on every journey, you kind of get one that hits the windshield. Now, we were fortunate enough in the SQ5, we had lots of chips, but we got them repaired and we never ended up with a crack. But when Jed mentioned, you know, the ExoShield, he thought it was pretty decent. I wanted to give it a go, just kind of see how it works and how effective it is over these first couple of winters. Now, the one thing to bear in mind with those is if you've got dirty wipers or you've got any grit or anything underneath them, it is possible to scratch, obviously, the kind of protective film that goes on the windshield. So I've been pretty careful with that, but to be honest, so far, you wouldn't even know it was on the windshield. And we have had one particularly big rock chip that hit, and from what I can tell, and I'll show you a quick clip of this, is the ExoShield did actually protect the windshield from it, which is perfect and exactly what we're looking for. Onto the winter rims and tyres. So we went with the 21-inch Vossen HF2 rims. Super happy with those. Really nice fitment over the large brake calipers. They look great. They're fairly understated for winter running, which is really good. And also the Nokian tyres have a decent amount of sidewall to deal with potholes, road chips, and just all-round general winter conditions. We did look at a couple of options when we were selecting winter tires, ranging from higher performance winter tires, which are going to give you a little bit less road noise, into a kind of a middle performance tire, and down to actually the ones that we've selected, these Nokians, which are really strong, fairly extreme winter tires, very good for slush, powdery snow, etc. And even though they probably do bring a little bit more road noise than the sort of ultra high performance winter tires we could have selected, they are really great when you've got fresh snow on the ground, which for us every weekend is pretty common in Calgary and when we're hitting the mountains. So really happy with that selection. Maybe, once these wear out in 3 to 4 years, potentially we'll look at doing something on a more high performance set, but for now they're perfect for, this all-round family wagon. We threw on a roof box, which I mentioned earlier in the video, so I won't get too much into that. But it's been great. We keep the skis out of the car, just throw them up there. No issues with it so far, and that's been awesome. The one thing that I did buy, though, which was kind of new to me, but probably has been around for a long time, is a doorstep, but a doorstep that kind of hooks onto one of the hinges on the car, which is super handy in order to get kind of up and down and load the roof box. So I'll just show it here briefly, and then just give me 1 second and I'll attach it to the car and show you what it looks like when you're actually using it. Okay, well that is all for this one, and in summary, the ownership experience so far has just been one pure enjoyment. Great car to drive, super practical, kids love it. And to be honest, every time this is parked in a public place, always have 1 or 2 people come over, either enthusiasts themselves or people just wanting to learn more about the car. So it's just a fantastic conversation starter, and it really has been just an excellent addition to the garage. Before I go, let me give you a quick preview of some of the content planned for the channel this year. First off, we have the PPF footage and a voiced over. Now, most of that is done. I'm just working on the final edit with Jed from Autokosmetik, so watch this space. Hopefully that one will be out in the next couple of weeks. We're also going to bring some spring and summer road trip content to the channel. Currently we have 2 trips planned, and I don't want to reveal too much at this stage, but I can tell you one of them will finish in Vegas and the other one will be in Europe, but in that one we won't be in the RS6, so excited to bring you both of those. If we do go ahead with a new exhaust install, which is fairly likely, we'll have access to the garage that's installing that, which is going to be great. So that should also make for a great video. So look out for that one probably later on in the summer, maybe into the fall. And then finally, for any sim racing enthusiasts, we're heading into the endurance season with the first race, the Daytona 24-hour, on the 21st and 22nd of Jan. So a couple of weeks from recording this video. I'll be streaming throughout the 24 hours, so feel free to tune in from any time zone. A huge thanks again for all of your support in 2023. It's really given me renewed motivation to push forward with the channel this year. Can't wait to share more with you, but for now, Happy New Year and catch you in the next one.